Hey, today I want to introduce you to Natalie Turner, senior graphic designer. And while she's going to say senior graphic designer, and that's what she does, wait till you hear what that actually means. So, Natalie, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, what I do here at PDG is I am the senior graphic designer, and what my responsibilities are um, art development and art generation for whatever, whether it be branding, advertising campaigns, even web design. I kind of get to make it pretty. And the guys get to make it work, and I get to make it pretty. That's
The
that's what I.
visual side. And sometimes when I can imagine you either get like a fully done branded package dropped on your desk or you're starting
Mhm.
from scratch. What's that like when you're trying to put that together for somebody?
Well, it is kind of a different process if somebody does come with us and they've already got a brand, versus we have to develop a brand. Um, if we have to develop a brand, it's I mean, obviously that's more exciting because we get to know them, and then we get to kind of be there when the baby's born, I guess, if that makes any sense. Because we kind of get to be a part of developing the identity that their customers or and clients are going to associate them with. But if they come to us with a brand already done, um, we do want to do an evaluation or an audit of that brand, anyway, even though it's already done. And depending on how well established it is, I mean, if it's a 50-year-old company, you obviously, you're doing an audit as opposed to suggesting anything drastic as far as changing it, because there can be some pitfalls associated with that. But I mean, really, every place is different. The process that we definitely want to make sure we go through is we want to find out who they are, what they do, and what they value most. What is their target audience, and what does their target audience like? What speaks to them? What values do they have, and how do we align the company that we're working for with the values and interests of their clients? So sometimes no changes need to be made to their brands if they're still speaking to their target audience very very well and reaching them. And if there's some adjustments that need to be made, we'll suggest those.
Yeah, perfect. Because there's probably a lot of companies that come to you and they don't have like the exact font, the exact brand colors. Doesn't
Yeah.
every color have a
Oh yeah.
code? I mean, would you say most don't have everything packed up like that?
That is true. There's I would say probably the larger companies that we work for that have established brand guidelines, they'll have all those things. But what's funny, or it's one of those things that we kind of take for granted because we know what brand guidelines are. We know that a brand isn't just a logo. It's absolutely everything that has your name on it. It's how your audience sees you. That's what your brand is. And that's not typically well known among startups or smaller businesses. Your larger, more established businesses will have brand guidelines, and they'll have all these things in place. And their generally, with a larger, more established company, we don't do a whole lot. Um, we'll do brand awareness, but we won't really change or align much of their brand. But that's probably, I haven't done an official survey on this, but I would say that's 5 to 10% of the companies we work for. The lion's share of the companies we work for don't really understand how pervasive your brand needs to be in your organization. It's not just a logo slapped on your building or stationery. It's absolutely everything about who you are, and that's what we try to educate them on as they go through the process and as they get to know us.
Yeah. So no one should be embarrassed if they don't have that completely done, and they're
Oh
gonna
no.
they're gonna leave this process. Actually, one of the first steps in the process is to get the branding right, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And we try to be pretty approachable when it comes to um we don't we're our go-to reaction is not to just dog on somebody's brand and tell them everything that's wrong with it. We try to, our first step is really to find the things that they're doing right, and then help them fill in the gaps where we feel that things are being done wrong or can be done better.
No, that's perfect. So what a great first step. Now, once your work is kind of, I won't say done because you probably are all the way through the process, but where does that go in for them? Where does that go for the process? What's the next step?
The next step after making sure the brand is
Yeah,
in
you
line.
brand audit, you get everything kind of nailed down. You kind of got a little bit of the why. Maybe you've made some tweaks, or maybe you've just kind of got a better understanding of what they have. Where does that kind of go within the process? What do they do after that?
The next process is figuring out their messaging. Who is their audience? What does their audience care about? Where is their audience? Where do they congregate? And what's the problem that you're solving for them? Because, there's you arguably we are the most advertised to generation that has ever existed. You can't this is old information, but as long ago as almost 20 years ago when I graduated college, the statistic was before you go to bed every night, you see at least 4,000 ads, whether it be in print or digital media or video. You're seeing 4,000 ads a day. There's a lot of people out there that have products and services and they want you to buy them. For our clients, what we try to do is go like, okay, there's all these people out here, and not all of them are your audience. We want to broaden your audience as much as possible, but let's find out like who does you make a thing, what's the demo, who's the person that's going to benefit most from your product or service, and let's talk to them directly. Let's find out their name. Let's find out what their hobbies are. Let's find out what concerts they like to go to and reach them there. And once we've seen, and social media is great for this, once we start to see some really good data that we're reaching the people that we're trying, that is in our bullseye of our target audience, then we try to broaden it out. But before you can broaden it out, you got to find out who is at least 50% of the people you're trying to reach. And we need to meet them where they're at and find out what messaging speaks to them. So, and that's quite a process to go through, but that is the next step after branding is finding out what your messaging is and how do we speak directly to the people that are most going to benefit initially from your product or service.
That's an awesome point, because I tell you what, sometimes you're scrolling through your phone and all of a sudden you see something, you're like, how did they know that?
Exactly. Yeah.
How'd they pick that up? So that
I remember
design.
being younger and being like, I don't want to live in that world. And then, I remember the first time I walked into a mall and my phone like vibrated and I looked at it and it was exactly what I wanted. I'm like, how does it know? And like, I want to move to the mountains and never come back. But
so that's a great segue to what got you interested in this line of work in the first place?
Well, that's an interesting question. When I was a kid, I loved art. I loved drawing. I loved creating a world or a thing that was in my head. And there was something magical about seeing an image in your head and making it real. When I was in high school, I took all the art classes I could. I knew I wanted to do something that was involved in that. I don't know if little side. It's a funny story. I'll make it short.
No, go for it. Take your time.
I was in an
Tell
English
the story.
class, and I was not one of those students. I was a visual and tactile learner. I didn't learn very well by sitting in a classroom and being forced to listen to a lecture or read a book. So I'm a junior in high school, and we're learning how to take like notes in outline form, and I just wasn't getting it. And I'm in an English class. We're reading Beowulf, and I thought Beowulf was a cool story. There was a lot of so in my notebook, which we had to turn in every day. I don't know how I thought I was going to get by with it, but we were supposed to take notes, and I would draw pictures. I would draw scenes from Beowulf. And remember, my teacher walked by, and she had the best of intentions, but she kind of like crushed me. But she looks at me, she looks down at my notebook, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm taking notes." And she goes, "These are not notes. This is you goofing off, and you need to learn to take notes." And She was like, you have to turn this in. How did you think I wasn't going to see this? I'm like, I don't know. And it was just what I knew. And so, and then she said, Natalie, you need to learn to take notes, because when you grow up and you get into the professional world, you need to learn to take notes. You are not going to find a job where all you get to do is draw pictures all day. And well, I found a job where I get to draw pictures all day. I also did. She was right. I did need to learn how to take notes, and I got really good at taking notes. But um, that was kind of the young me kind of figuring out my place in the world. And I went to OSU Okmulgee, and they had a great visual communications program, and it was tough. Like when I say I know college is tough, but all of our instructors, and this is really like a testimony to how to that program. I love OSU Okmulgee. All of their instructors were freelancers. It wasn't like they'd just been in a classroom for 20 years and hadn't gone out and done a trade. They were like, when we were in our Ad 2 class putting together our projects, our teacher was over his desk doing his thing that for a client that he was working for. And so because of that, because they were all currently in the industry, one, they had connections that they would always filter onto us. You know, they say like, you know, half of what you pay for in college is access when you graduate. And they had the access to agencies and people that we needed to get to know. And well, when I graduated, we needed four interviews to graduate. And I was gonna go on a mission trip to India for a month. So I was convinced no one was gonna hire me. So I was gonna have to job hunt when I came back. Well, my interview, I had three of them and I needed a fourth one. And I grew up in Bartlesville. I was not planning on coming home. I wanted to go to Oklahoma City, or I wanted to go someplace else. I had Ackerman McQueen offered me a position, but then they found out I was going to India for a month, and they're like, no, we don't want that. So I contacted Matt Pendergraph, who was my former boss, and asked him if I could just have an interview. And so he obliged, and I came back home for the weekend, and I went in Monday morning and interviewed with Matt and Barb. That was his wife. And it was the coolest, funnest interview. And I told them that I was going to India too. And I just figured they weren't going to hire me. And but it was fun. I loved the atmosphere here. It was smaller. The other, I went to Oklahoma City to interview at Ackerman McQueen, and then I interviewed at a couple of firms in Tulsa, and they were all really big. And the thing that I noticed about the bigger agencies, at least in my bubble, the bigger agencies, were when you have these large multinational clients, oftentimes you get a designer that's kind of assigned to you, and you only work on their stuff. Whereas here, because it's smaller and there's a lot more variety in clients, and oftentimes they're smaller clients or small businesses and startups. I was going to get to work with a lot of different industries and learn a lot about different industries. I was going to get to do logos and ads. I was going to get to do web design. I was going to get to do video editing. I was going to get to do a variety of different things. So I wouldn't get bored. I guess when I was young, that's what I was like, I don't want to get bored at work. And there's never been a boring day here. So just because we have a lot of clients, and a lot of variety of different projects that we can work on. And so it's just every day is fun. I would not have put myself here 20 years ago, but I wouldn't be anywhere else. I love it here.
And that atmosphere, that culture, that fun environment. I mean, talk a little bit about how that affects the product you're putting out and the results you do for people.
So I've been here a long time. I've been at PDG for 17 and a half years. And it's changed a lot. Now, the industry's changed so much. Just Travis was just talking to me, he was like, hey, did you know this day in history in 2001, the iPod was introduced. And I was like, the iPod still feels new. Like, how can it be 23 years old? It's old enough to vote and drive and drink. But so as far as culture goes, we have a very open office here, and we're not I'm not bashing the cubicle culture, but there's not as much collaboration that happens, or collaboration has to be much more intentional in an environment like that. Whereas here we have like half walls where we can kind of just zone in, do our thing. But because it is so open, and because web and creative are in the same room, we all just kind of ask questions out loud. And when I have a problem that I'm pretty analytical for a creative, but I'm still kind of stuck in the creative mindset. And whereas Caleb and Travis, they're very analytical. And that's not to say they're not creative. They absolutely are, but they're creative in a different way. So when we can kind of sit in a room, and oftentimes we're all working on the same project, just different aspects of it. Whereas like if we're working on a website, I'm working on a site map, or I'm working on front end design, whereas they're working on how's it going to work. So we talk all the time in the workroom, and they're very, I know it's cliche, but we do very much function for like, there is no stupid question. I'm like, it might be stupid, but go ahead and ask it just in case. And we're all friends, and we show each other a lot of grace. And we really do, when we say we're a team, like we really do mean it. Like we're there for each other. We try to hang out. We're not as great at as we like to be, but we try to have at least like one night a month where we all just kind of stay at the office after work, and we have food and play games or whatever, just so that there is that team mentality. And how that benefits our clients is that because we don't silo each other, if we're working on a project for a client, we are working on a problem that needs solved. And if you're in an environment where you feel like, I can't ask a question, or I have to silo myself, I have to figure this out, I can't ask for help, that really does affect the product that your client gets. If your brand or your ad or your website is being created in an environment where multiple people from multiple perspectives are contributing to the solution to the problem, then you're going to get a better outcome. You're going to get the best possible solution to that problem that 6 people thought of instead of just one.
Yeah, I love that. And along those same lines, what are you seeing out in the market now that is causing you and your team to think a little differently?
Well, we were kind of talking about this earlier. AI is kind of it's one of those things that we're like, none of us really knows like what's the end result of this. We do use it. I mean, I was just playing around with it with an image just now, and it doesn't know how to spell the word revenue, which was, I don't know. It didn't know what a syllable was, and the better it gets at stuff, the more freaked out I get. And it's more philosophical in nature than that fear of automation, because, so much of the industry that's changed is because there is this amazing machine that because machine learning is a thing, it makes every single task we do easier and quicker. And there is kind of a fear like, dude, am I going to be irrelevant in the next 5 or 10 years? But that is kind of a fear that quickly goes away, because it's like, well, we can push a button, but we know where the button's at, and we know how to push the button. And so there still has to be a human element to interact with a client, but also understand exactly what their needs are, because a machine can't do that. every time I have like this little thought that we're all going to be replaced by robots. Because I watched Terminator 2, a couple weeks ago, and it's scary to watch that movie now. But it does subside because you're like, okay, there will never be a world where, in a world where businesses exist, those businesses need people to understand them. So I'm like, okay, we're fine. Now, if we wind up in a world where businesses don't exist, then I guess we're in trouble. But if I'm out of a job anyway, if businesses don't exist, so I'm not afraid of that anymore. But I think that anytime, no matter what industry you're in, uh, anytime something gets invented that makes people's lives better, anytime a thing makes people's lives better, there's this perception that, oh, a person is not making someone's life better. A thing is making someone's life better, but a person invented the thing, and a person needs to use the thing. So that it new advancements kind of come with fear, but then it's then replaced with, okay, if we need this, then we'll continue to use it and continue to buy it, and it'll continue to be a thing. But if we don't need it, then we won't buy it and it won't continue to be a thing. So there's this reciprocal symbiotic relationship that businesses have with the consumer, that consumers have with businesses, and there's all these spheres. So I think as long as you don't let fear drive your decision making, and you always are learning, and you're going to be able to adapt to whatever the market throws at you. I honestly, I can't predict what's going to happen in, technology wise in the next 5 to 10 years. But as long as we can, as long as we don't let fear drive our decision making, and as long as we are always learning, then we'll be able to adapt and land on our feet no matter what happens. So,
Yeah, and it actually sounds like you're using it as a tool, right?
yes,
So it's like when the computer
yeah,
came out or the phone came out. I mean, you
yeah,
need to embrace this stuff, and that probably puts you in a really unique position to actually give a better experience and a better results for your clients because you're embracing it and not
yeah,
dependent on it.
exactly.
Perfect.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it. Embrace it, but don't be dependent on it. Exactly. That's where we need to be.
Perfect. Hey, what's one thing no one else knows about you?
Oh, it's one thing no one else knows about me.
I'm
I
putting
am
you
an
on the spot. I
open
know.
book. I talk all the time. What's something people don't know about me? Oh man. I always wanted to be a fighter pilot. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot so bad. And I still kind of live my life that way. Um, I really like, I could take off at any moment and just go to I love to camp and fish and hunt. That's my thing. And they all know that. I'm trying to think of something they don't know. I talk too much. I mean, look, really, I'm, man, what's someone, I mean, there's probably a guilty pleasure. That I like the show Once Upon a Time, even though it's not been on TV in 8 years. I'll still rewatch it. It's embarrassing, but that's
And
one
I
thing.
totally put you on
Yeah.
the spot with that. We didn't
Oh no.
rehearse that or put. I didn't give you that question in advance.
Oh no, you're fun.
Yeah.
Fun. I
uh,
like this.
yeah.
Now
Well,
you know that.
was that?
I've not told anyone else that. Now
Yeah.
Travis knows, and you know.
That's awesome. It sounds like a phenomenal kind of almost like a family of all put together on this,
Oh
where you
yeah.
each have your expertise and you're working together towards the client. Describe one of the more recent successes, or maybe a really fun day you've had in the office recently.
Oh man. Um man, we talk all the time. I'm um when Andy started, we do leaders meetings on Wednesdays. It used to be full team meetings, and we the reason we wanted it to be the whole team was we wanted it to be a team building, culture building um, thing that we did, and that was the original intent. And then we discovered that no, it was just work, and you can't like have a team building thing and it be work. So we realize we're interrupting, five or six people's days in when three is enough. The three people in leadership could knock it out in one meeting. But we're like, but we still want to have the team building thing, and because that's important. How do we do that? And I can't remember who suggested it, but most of the ideas, like the thing that I do love about Andrew's leadership style is he does create an environment where everybody is free to contribute. And most of the things that we've done over the last 10 years have been something that one of us thought of. But I think it was Travis or Andrew, but one of them said, well, what if we just, hung out after work? And we're like, I don't know that I want to do that. But we decided that, we picked a day and we started playing Settlers of Catan and eating, whatever food we all cooked, or we would watch like a comedy show or something. And we all just started hanging out, and we really like got to know each other. And Caleb was kind of new when we started doing that, and we got to know him, and it was a really easy way to be at work but not feel like you were at work, and you could still kind of get to know each other. We did recently, just when Andy bought PDG, we had some debt that was required to like revamp some things, and we recently paid off that debt. And we're all big on, trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can, because we are a small business. We all do consider, like, Andrew might be the entrepreneur, the dude who owns he's the boss, but we all do kind of feel like our desk with our computer, that's our business, and we're responsible with what happens there. And the goal was, when it's easy for a salesperson to know when they're doing well because their commission check reflects it. When you're in production, you don't get that. Your check is your check. And a long time ago, we were talking, and Andy was like, how do we, facilitate this ownership that employees can have, so that they can, because like money lets you know you're doing well. When you get more money, you've done well. You've done better than you did last time. Or you get less money, like, oh, I didn't do as well. Money is a great incentive, and there's nothing wrong with it. So he was like, hey, how about once we get this debt paid off, we start instituting profit sharing. There's, when we get our revenue in, we know how much has to go towards expenses and taxes and insurance and all that. We know how much we have to save every month. And then what's left from that profit, we're going to share a percentage of it based on your performance, so that people are encouraged to perform well. And then COVID hit, and we were fortunate. There were a lot of businesses that went away. They're not coming back. And that didn't happen to us because we had savings. Now it got wiped out, but we had it. We're all still here. We all have jobs. And, but Andy made a promise 10 years ago that when this debt's paid off, we're going to start profit sharing. We did have to take out a loan, during COVID, but he kept that promise. And we all finally got to get profit sharing checks. And it was just such a great day where we're like, hey, we get extra. We did good. And it was just, it was a great morale booster. And to see your company like keep a promise, and to then get to share in the fruits of us doing well. I'm like, I want to keep doing that. And we're interviewing to have another web developer come on. And when we finally do hire one, we're hiring several, or we're interviewing several. And when we finally hire one, when we bring them in, they get to see that they work for a company that cares about them, that encourages their own professional, personal development as far as building new skills, or the fact that we have an open office environment and you're allowed to, if you see something that's wrong or something that could be done better, you can suggest a solution to that problem, and you're rewarded for it. You're not told, hey, you don't run this place, sit down and just do your work. That's not at all what it's been like being here. It's very much like you are valued as a team member, and we're all in a creative field, and we should absolutely exhaust ourselves on making our clients the best possible product. But we also don't want to have like this the cobbler's kids have no shoes, where we do want to exhaust some of our creative capital on ourselves and improve ourselves as an organization, and we're encouraged to do that. And it's very rewarding, being, you don't just get up and go to work and you're like, oh, I gotta go to work today. I'm like, no, it's fun. And we all feel like we get to do something. If you have a job, if your job exists, then you matter. You are doing something that another person or a bunch of people are getting some benefit out of. And as long as you can find joy and fulfillment in that, then you don't really have to gripe about going to work every day. Like we tried to find out, we ask businesses all the time, like, what do you do? And I love it when they tell us, like, well, I roof houses, or they give us the thing. And then it's the funnest thing in the world to go, yeah, but what do you really do? Because it's confusing. And I can't remember where I heard this. I really want to give them credit, because it was some guy, I don't know if he was a comedian or what, but he was talking about, he would go to this ice cream parlor every day. And there was this guy who ran it, or who worked there. He didn't own the place, but he worked behind the counter. And he was kind of an older guy. He was like, not old, like he retired and he's just doing this so he doesn't get bored. It's like he's like in his 30s or 40s, where like, you didn't make the best decisions, did you? Because you should not be working at a place like this. But yet he was happy to be there. And the guy started noticing that when he would ask people's names. And there was one specific incident where a man came in with his son, and the man was kind of like, looked stressed out, looked like he was not having a great day. But then the kid's there, and kids always having a good day. Kids in an ice cream parlor getting ice cream with his dad, that's the best day ever. And the guy behind the counter could tell that dad's just having a bad day. So he goes all out, like, hey, with the little kid, go, hey, what toppings do you want? Hey, let's give you another one, and really, and this kid is just over the moon happy. And the guy goes up to the guy after, he pays, and he thanks the guy, and he says, hey, thank you you didn't have to do any of that. You really went above and beyond, and you made my son have a really good day, and you made my day better. He's like, I know you're not looking, I don't know if this is too much information or what, but he's like, wife and I just split up, and they're moving. And I haven't, this is the first time in 2 weeks I've gotten to see him, and I wasn't sure how great it was going to be for him, but he had a great day, and that's all that matters to me. And the guy's like, I don't serve ice cream. I make people's days better. My job today was not to serve ice cream. My job today was to make sure that dad could come in with his son and have a distraction-free day, and just kind of bask in that moment. I don't serve ice cream for a living. I serve, I make the baseball team that just came in here because they won, I get to help them celebrate their win. The team sitting over there that's here because they lost, I get to go help soothe their pain because they lost. And that's like how he began to see what he did. So we like to ask people, like, what is it that you do? No, what do you really do? What's the value that you're actually bringing to people's lives? So um, I don't I don't do advertising. I don't do marketing. Um, we are I get to help people make their businesses better. I get to tell people who City Lights is. I get to tell people who Paths to Independence are. I get to get the word out about these organizations that are they're doing a good thing, whether it's a nonprofit or whether you're a for-profit business that is just hiring people and helping people have, be financially independent. There was one of my favorite clients is Inco Electric. They're a small electrician company. And it's a woman who, her dad was an electrician her whole life. And he was a solo job, and he built up, he had some capital, he had a truck and he had some equipment, and she's not an electrician. She doesn't know the first thing about being an electrician, but she's a great businesswoman. And her dad wanted to retire. She wanted to buy her dad's business. And this is 2019 when they're deciding they want to do all this. And she had contacted us January of 2020 telling us this was going to happen. I'm going to buy my dad's business, and I'm not an electrician, but I'm going to hire men who are, and I want to grow. My dad was never interested in growing. I want to grow. I want to hire more people. I want to buy more trucks. I want to serve a larger area. And then March of 2020 hit, and we all were kind of like, oh, this will blow over in a couple of weeks. And no, it just continued. And then just stuff that we could not have predicted happened. And I mean, on the outside, terrible time to start a business. And yet that's exactly what she did. She decided in the middle of in April of 2020, I'm going to start a business. Who does that? There were businesses that were closing and they're not back. They're never coming back. And yet she started because she had a different mindset. And they started small. She had to take on a little debt to do it, but she paid off that debt. And then she just continued to build. And what we tell people when we do a brand for them and when we're building their brand equity, we tell them, like, this doesn't happen overnight. There's actually a formula for building brand equity. It is rigid consistency plus frequent exposure over time, over a long period of time. You have to be consistent, and you have to just saturate your area with your brand, and you have to do it for a long time. And that's expensive, and it takes buy-in, it takes commitment. And if you're willing to do that, it will pay off. And it has. She's unstoppable. And I love working for her. She's constantly coming in here like, hey, I need more shirts. I need more. We're going to sponsor a booster thing. I need a banner. She's constantly coming in here and asking for, and she was like, what do you think if I do this? I'm like, I think it's great that you're getting involved in the community. What do you need? And we'll offer suggestions. Or her husband actually used to work here, so she's got him to bounce ideas off of. So it's so rewarding to see someone take a risk, really commit to it, and see it through. That's the coolest thing in the world to see. And now it started out, it was her vice president, who's actually, he is an electrician. And then they had one other guy. And that was in April of 2020. So that was about, 4.5 years ago. And depending on 3.5, 4, I don't know. I'm a designer. I'm not a mathematician. So, she's been in business about 4 years. She's hired 15 people. We've wrapped 6 vehicles, and she just keeps building and keeps building. And it's so cool to watch her do it because, you know, our economy, our country, like however you want to look at it, the way of life that we all enjoy, we don't have that. We don't have that if people are not willing to risk their own capital. And the fact that we do have people that are really willing to risk their own capital just on an idea that may fail. It may succeed, but it may fail. And the fact that they're willing to do that, and when it succeeds, they provide other people with a means of taking care of their families. I get to help them do that. So that's kind of when we went through this kind of re-understanding what it is that we do. Like, I don't make logos and I don't make ads. We are the industry that makes all the other industries work. And so we're not, everyone's a cog in the wheel, but those cogs are important. We've taken that understanding and we've minimized it and made it not valuable. And yet if it doesn't happen, we don't have any of this. We don't have Zoom. We don't have the internet. We don't have any of this that we all enjoy and that we all use and that it brings benefit and value to our lives. We don't have it if people aren't willing to take a risk. So we get to be the industry that helps them win and enjoy the fruits of their labor and the rewards of the risk that they took. So,
well, Natalie, I'll tell you what, there's some absolute nuggets of gold there. I hope people get from that. I want to thank you for being part of this today. You've given us a ton of time. Really appreciate not only meeting you, but having you share with us, not just what you do, but what it means for you and your clients. Natalie, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Don. This has been fun.